There is a sound that history forgot to record. It is not the thunder of hooves or the clash of steel. It is the sound that came after, when the fires stopped burning, when the screaming stopped, when the men who could fight were already dead, and the women realized the war had not ended. It had just changed into something worse. What I am about to tell you is not a story about war. It is a story about the most efficient system of cultural genocide ever created. A machine so perfectly designed that it did not just conquer empires, it erased them from existence. And at the center of this machine, a calculated state-sponsored brutality aimed at one target: women. This is going to disturb you. It should, because about 16 million people alive today carry the genetic proof that it worked. Their DNA is a living record of what happened when an entire civilization decided that terror was not just a side effect of conquest. It was the primary weapon. And here is what makes your blood run cold. They did not just stumble upon this strategy. They refined it. They perfected it. They turned human suffering into a science. By the end of this video, you will understand why cities with populations of 500,000 people simply vanished from history. Why entire languages went extinct, why cultures that had flourished for thousands of years ceased to exist within a single generation. And you will understand the horrifying role that women played, not as warriors or rulers, but as the targets of the most systematic campaign of cultural destruction the medieval world had ever seen. This is the Mongol terror machine. And once you see how it worked, you will never look at history the same way again. If you believe that the lessons of history's most fearsome figures should never be forgotten, consider liking this video and subscribing. Your support brings more stories from the shadows of our past. The Mongols understood that conquering land was not enough. You had to break a people's presence so completely that they lost the will to resist. This was the second act of their warfare, performed publicly as psychological theater. They perfected humiliation as a weapon, targeting cultural honor, and especially the protection of women. The fall of Baghdad on February 13, 1258, showed this method in its purest form. Baghdad was the heart of the Abbasid Caliphate, home of the House of Wisdom, a city that had preserved and advanced human knowledge for centuries. When Hulagu Khan's forces broke through, estimates say between 200,000 and 1 million people died, the Tigris River turning black with ink from destroyed books and red with blood. Yet the deeper attack was on dignity. The secluded women of the caliph's palace, considered almost holy, were dragged into the streets, unveiled, stripped, and paraded through markets. These were the mothers and daughters of the man who claimed spiritual authority over millions. Their humiliation broadcast a message that your leaders cannot protect their own, your God did not intervene, and your civilization is already dead. They were then sold for as little as 1 silver coin, a price meant not for profit but for insult. For surviving men, this shattered identity at its core. The Mongols did not apply this everywhere. Cities that surrendered early were spared such disgrace. The threat was advertised ahead of the army. Surrender and keep your dignity, resist and we will ensure generations feel the shame. This was terror as technology. Then came a tactic so brutal that early readers thought it was exaggeration until multiple sources confirmed it. Karish, meaning human cattle turned captives from one city into moving shields for the next. Women with babies, the elderly, and children were forced to march toward the walls of the next target while Mongol soldiers hid behind them. Defenders had to choose between killing their own people or holding fire and allowing siege engines to advance. The fallen were piled into moats to form ramps for towers, turning human bodies into construction material. Persian, Chinese, and Russian sources describe this, and archaeological sites reveal mass graves near walls. Survivors faced 1,000-mile marches into slavery. The Mongol Empire ran on human beings as currency. After every conquest, artisans were taken for skilled labor, workers sent to camps, and women became the most valuable commodity. Entire populations were emptied. When Genghis Khan invaded the Khwarezmian Empire, millions vanished, many sold across Asia. Slave markets in Samarkand operated with standardized pricing and even warranties. Women traveled thousands of miles from their homelands, their descendants losing their language and identity. Central Asian genetics still reflect this vast mixing, the mark of the largest forced relocation in human history. The fifth act was the erasure of memory itself. The Mongols did not only burn cities, they killed the poets, scholars, historians, and priests who carried cultural identity. In Baghdad, the House of Wisdom vanished, its books thrown into the Tigris River until pages floated like a bridge. Their strategy was simple: do not just burn the books, kill the people who could rewrite them. Across 5 acts the pattern becomes clear. Women forced to bear conquerors' children, societies humiliated, captives used as human shields, survivors scattered across continents, and knowledge keepers eliminated. This was genocide engineered with precision, meant to make civilizations disappear within 2 generations. When women were enslaved far from home, forbidden to speak their language, the chain of memory shattered forever. Cities like Merv, Nishapur, and Urgench, once centers of culture and brilliance, now survive only as forgotten ruins half the world has never heard of. The Mongols built a terror machine so effective that resistance became irrational. 16 million men alive today carry their genetic imprint, living reminders of a conquest that rewrote human history. And that is the unsettling truth. Their arrows conquered bodies, but their reputation conquered minds. Even centuries later, the fear they engineered still echoes, a shadow stretching across time, challenging us to remember what entire civilizations were forced to forget.